Oh yeah, Chris Simmons first with us tonight. Yes, we're a little bit late. I'm totally gonna take it as my fault. I was showing everybody the results of a vapor honing machine in pre-show and didn't realize we ran over, but hey, it was cool. Willie Jones on the show. Good to see you here, boss. Hey man, this is Chris with Cycle Source, and I will be your engineer this evening for the Motorcycle Cannonball Chronicles. Fantastic show coming up for you guys. Great guest, great show tonight. And just 4 minutes away, we're going live. Good evening from Laconia Bike Week. Bruno Coppola. I heard good news about Laconia. They're giving the all ahead full on that. Fantastic, man. That's great to hear. 98. They're going to cross the 98 mark this year. Hoping for that big 100. Chris Cole in the house. All right, Steve Broyles with us. Listen, if you're watching from anywhere around the world, put your hometown. Jimmy Bradley's in from Milwaukee. Walt Lumpkin in from Georgia. Rainy night there again. We'll give you a little shout out. It's good for us to see where we're reaching with this show. Big thanks out to Choppertown and Cycle Source for carrying the feed, helping us get this out. But you can do your part too. Just hit the like and share button, and this thing goes further and further all the time. All right, stick around. 3 minutes, we're going live with Motorcycle Cannonball Chronicles. James Nelson in from North Carolina. Who else we got? Cream Ridge, New Jersey. Matt Miller, number 46. If you got a rider number, put that up too. We want to know. David Bird, here we are. Todd Cameron, Pasadena, California, rider number 199. Joe Sparrow with us tonight. Fantastic. Richard Campbell, good evening from the number 96 Team Zundap. Atlanta, right on. George Unruh, Team Unruly, 73, St. John, Kansas. Baku from Venezuela, welcome to the show. Good to see you here. Just a minute 56 and we're going live. David Crum, present from New Jersey. New Jersey always strong in the house. Adam Seymour, Rancho Cucamonga. And I didn't even have to practice that. Incredible. Doug Brinkler, Clearwater, Kansas. Beth Nussbaum in the house. Everybody better behave. Energy. My associate producer, I think, is giving me direction as we speak. Tommy Vicko, Sydney, Australia. 2 beers and the Australian flag. What's up, man? Okay, as we cross the 30-second mark, that means it's time to get this one out of the station and up onto the track. It's time to go live with this week's installment of the Motorcycle Cannonball Chronicles. Here we go.
Well, hey there, Cannonball Nation. What is happening? That's right. We are back. It is another Wednesday edition of the Cannonball Chronicles, and we are super excited to be with you guys tonight. We have a great show planned tonight. A lot of great information to give you. Our guest, Doc O'Brien from out west, is going to be super tonight. Really great story, really great dude, and I can't wait to get him on here in a little bit and share some stories with you. So been a great week for me. Weather is great here in Arizona. We are having a good time. Been out riding motorcycles and working on stuff until it gets just too hot in the day to be out there, I guess. I mean, that's kind of a good thing and a bad thing. But anyway, enough about me. I want to bring in my co-host, my buddy, Mr. Rob Nussbaum. What's happening, dude?
Hey, it's great to be here. Great to be here. 2 floors below street level from a Cycle Source Media Retro Cycle Studios here in Boonton, New Jersey.
Right?
I had to do a little Chris Callan type thing here tonight. We're 2 floors below street level.
Hey, so you know what? It's been a few weeks that I even asked you what you've been up to.
Yeah, I know you're self-absorbed. That's the way you roll, Jason.
I know. It's always about me.
But enough about me. What do you think of me?
Well,
we've been busy doing stuff. We had a surprise visit with Burt Miskell. Came in last week,
cool.
Unannounced. That was really cool. And he picked up some stuff we were doing for him. We still got a motor on the bench that a single we're working on there. A couple panheads, flathead motor, a lot of generators, all kinds of stuff going on. But Jason, let me take 1 second. My daughter is watching tonight.
Ooh.
So y'all behave yourself out there tonight because my daughter's watching. All right. And the boss, my wife.
I seen she was tuned in.
It's a family affair tonight, so
good.
Yeah, it's really cool. Really cool. I think this might be the first time my daughter Meredith is watching. So I just want to tell her I love her. She's wonderful. She's a good kid.
Yeah.
So what have you been doing? Messing around in the garage, getting stuff
yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I've been working out there. I this weekend I got I'm helping a company do a documentary on motorcycling. So we are getting ready and prepared to do a big film shoot this weekend with, nice. I don't know, anywhere from 8 to a dozen or a couple dozen motorcyclists. Anywhere. I think the oldest bike that's going to be with us is a 1916 all the way up to 1972. So we'll have just a little bit of an eclectic mix out there. When it comes time, I'll share our little project that we're doing. It'll be all over social media airwaves, and I think it'll be pretty cool. And it'll give you kind of a history into motorcycling and why it brings us to where we are today. So super excited to work with this group, and it
sounds like a fun project, Jason. Good luck.
Yeah.
I think that'll be great. Oh, one other thing with us
with motorcycles.
One other thing with us is we picked up an ultrasonic cleaner this week, and it was kind of neat. I said to Brad, who's working with me here, I said, go look on Craigslist and see what's out there. He goes, oh man, they go for a lot of money. We got it for $250. The guy told us it had no heat in it. We fired it up. Works great. It's heated. We can put an engine case in it. So we're pretty excited. Nice. It does a great job.
Heck yeah, that's a great deal. Great deal. So hey, guess what? So I've also been working with Chris on there. We are going to do something very cool this year with both the motorcycle chase and the motorcycle cannonball. So we are actually busy putting together what will be the first official programs of both events. So nice. are, really putting some stuff together. We're going to feature all the riders and all their motorcycles, kind of do a little write-up on everybody. As you can see right there, that is one of our sample pages of what a rider page will look like. So we're going to profile the motorcycle and the rider and just a little brief bio about each other. We'll also have some advertising opportunities in there, and then we're also going to be featuring the past events with Michael Lichter's photography. So we're working with Michael to put together 30-40 pages or something like that of the last 2019 chase, kind of doing a recap of the event, and then kind of going into what this event will look like this year and the places you need to see, the places where you can see us. It'll just be kind of a guide for both events. So
cool.
We've been hard working on that here for a while, and it's I think it'll be fun. I think it'll be really fun.
I just want to say that Doug Wofke just sent you a message here. He says, "Howdy, I'm doing special cannonball training in Wyoming. Mostly that consists of breaking my motorcycle and eating pulled pork."
That's good training.
And your buddy Ryan is there. Ryan Allen, he's watching. We got a lot of people in early tonight, so you might want to give them your famous speech. There were so many I couldn't keep up in pre-show with saying hello to everybody. So if I didn't say hello to you, it's because it was going so fast and furious. We have so many people watching tonight. Jason, give them your little speech that you always do about liking this program.
Oh, yeah. So if you're out there and you're watching this program, we need you to first like it, and then we need you to share it. And you do that by mashing the button.
Mash it. Mash that share button. Tell all your friends. And Chris Simmons says, save her a spot to promote her books in the.
Oh yeah, that's a great idea.
All right. So
you chase riders might want to get one of her books or two. You might learn something.
Oh, I think they certainly should. And Chris Callan will probably put up a link to that. Also, Michael Lichter's photography. So when Chris gets a chance, hopefully he can throw a link up there where you can purchase Chris's books and Michael Lichter's photographic work for your home. If you were in the chase or the Cannonball, chances are there's a picture of you there. So
exactly.
And tomorrow night, Torque, the new program from Source Media, these guys are hitting it out of the ballpark. I encourage everybody tomorrow night at 9:00 Eastern to tune in and watch Torque. It's a great program. Jason Holman's doing a great job. And his co-host, whose name escapes me right now, I'm sorry, Chris Callan can help us out with that. Chris, if you're there.
John O'Brien from Hardcore Cycles.
Thank you very much. Sorry about that, John. So,
hey, so what? Let's let me do a little bit of house cleaning here on a few different items, because I see a lot of Cannonball people out there and chase guys. So remember, Motorcycle Cannonball hotel registration is this Saturday. So make sure you log in 12 o'clock Pacific time to book all your hotels for this year's event. So you don't want to be late and you don't want to miss that opportunity. So make sure you do your research. You got a few days. 12 o'clock Pacific time Saturday. 12 o'clock Pacific time Saturday. 12 o'clock Pacific time Saturday.
Right, which would be 3 o'clock Eastern time.
There you go. Hey, so that's Cannonball, and we'll also be sending out an update tomorrow on some stuff on that. Cross Country Chase, we just sent out the last of the number plates yesterday. So if you haven't gotten your number plates yet, they should be to you within the next week or so. USPS dependent.
Yeah.
So,
How many riders do you have now? Do you know?
I have no clue.
Okay.
So I
That's
know
on
we do
this.
have some spots left. I think we're in the 80s somewhere. So, if you're on the fence and you want to do it, there is still a little bit of time left. I will probably shut off registration maybe around June 1st or something like that, just because of things like the program. We want to make sure that people get in there and are a part of it and all that kind of stuff. So
So if you're out there and you want to be part of the chase, there's still spots available, evidently. So get your name in there and get registered and get off your duff and go do this thing, man. July 5th, right? Starts?
July 5th through the 10th. Yep.
Right. Starting from Cape Girardeau and finishing in
Cape Girardeau.
There you go.
It's going to be a good one. It's going to be a good one.
Oh, excellent. All right. Well, if you have nothing else, I'd like to introduce a little segment coming up here. What do you think?
Do it.
You ready? This is a little segment we do almost every week. We've been a little lax, but we bring in Rebecca Cunningham to do a segment we call 1,000 Words.
Well, hey
hi,
there. What's
everybody. Lots
And
of just little this and that stuff, life. That's what's happening with me.
Cool. What do you got for us, Rebecca?
Well, I have a little bit of video highlighting our guest for this evening's show. I happened to catch Chris O'Brien on the first day of the Cannonball in the morning before they headed out, and he told me just a little bit about his motorcycle, which was pretty interesting. And then just to kind of round it out, I added some footage from the end of the Cannonball. So I've got his start and his finish.
Beautiful. Let's take a look.
Okay. Ride like the wind.
Alan Bedell was a factory Henderson rider who set a cross-country record in 1917 on a 1917 Henderson. He rode from LA to New York in 7 days, 16 hours, and beat Cannonball Baker. Alan was my great-great-uncle.
Oh my God.
So I've been wanting to do a tribute ride to Alan for a long time. So this is for him.
That is awesome.
Isn't it great? Unfortunately, he died in the influenza epidemic in 1918. He was in training for aviation for World War I, and like many young men, he got hit with the Spanish flu and died. So he was only 22. Yeah. So this is for him. Sorry. No, don't be. I lived in Sausalito. Where do you live?
Well, it looks like Chris set a record from start to finish on that bike. He got from the start to the finish like that.
Yeah, that was quick, wasn't it?
I think he beat his uncle or whatever, his grandmother's cousin, beat his record.
That's I'm excited to bring him in here in a little bit and get to talk a little bit more about the Bedell story and then Doc O'Brien's story too. I mean, it's a good one. So he'll be a great guest for us tonight.
Yeah. So What do you say? We'll run a couple commercials and then we'll bring them in. How's that sound?
Let's do it.
All right.
Hi, I'm Tom. I'm with Banks Brothers Motorcycles. One of the things I want to show you today is our new improved engine puller.
The changes to this machine has been in the arms and in the hands. We put hind joints in the hand to allow rotation of the engine, which makes it easier to get it in and out of the frame. With the angle change, we have equal clamping pressure on them. And over here we have what's called the posi lock, which allows this to be locked in place and the engine can't swing from side to side.
And we're going to show you just how easy it is to pull the motor out of the bike right now. George is actually going to come in, make contact with the cylinders, tighten it down, he's going to pull it out of there.
You lift it up, rotate it, and bring the assembly out of the frame. You see the motor starting to move and it centers itself. This allows no side play once the motor's in place, and it keeps it safe, it can't fall out.
Visit BanksBrothersMotorcycles.com to order your Banks lift.
My name is Patrick Maloney. Most all my friends call me Mo. You know, I liked motorcycles and hot rods long before I could drive. I remember looking out the window of the family car when I was a kid, and my mom would see me eyeballing that guy on a Harley and just knowing it was just burning her up. I never had a street bike until I joined the Navy. The Navy was cool. We always had a group of guys. All the guys on the ship that rode Harleys always hung out together. I remember getting off the ship with snow on the ground in Virginia, and the first place I went was right up to that knucklehead and fire it up. Never gave it another thought. You know, a lot of times I didn't have a car. That's how I got into biking. 6 months later, I bought another one. Probably another 6 months later, I bought a knucklehead rolling chassis with a pair of chrome Invader wheels on it and a Jocklid 4-speed transmission, candy red over gold. Right in the middle of a trailer park, I found a knucklehead motor. Bought that motor for $350 in 1982. This isn't just my garage, this is my living room. My name's Patrick Maloney, and I'm a Dennis Kirk garage builder.
Watch Torque. That video is so good it looks like a regular commercial for a product, Chris. I can't believe how good that is.
Yeah, it turned out good. Turned out
And
good.
our-
It's a great show too. Great show.
Yeah, and our sponsors, I want to thank our sponsors for stepping up to the plate. And you too could sponsor. So if you have a product or something, you can have your name up in the logo roll above Jason's head there that keeps spinning. That's the energy from Jason causing that logo roll to spin. So
Hey, without these guys, we would have to charge you guys out there watching us. So let's
Right.
not make that happen.
it keeps the show free. So
Exactly.
like I said, if you want to sponsor, you can even sponsor the studio. The Retro Cycle Studio could be yours with your name on it. So that's our call for help.
Anyway. Hey, super excited for our guest that we're going to bring in here in just a second. Met this guy just a few years ago, and kind of when the first time I met him, he really told me his story, and yeah, I was a fan ever since. And I can't wait to hear some more stories from him, and maybe learn some stuff I haven't learned yet. And I think without further ado, I think we should bring in our guest, Chris O'Brien. Hey, Doc, what's happening?
Hey, Jason, good to hear your voice.
Yeah, you too. You're looking good.
Living the life, we're on this little island up in Puget Sound. I get to play with bikes and, avoid most of the rest of the world. It's a pretty good deal.
That is a pretty good deal. Hey, Chris, how you doing? Good?
Good, Rob.
Good to see you.
Good
to see you, man.
Yeah.
So tell our viewers a little bit about Chris O'Brien, a little bit of background on you. And I heard Jason refer to you as Doc, so maybe we could start with that.
Yeah. So the good news is I'm a retired doc. That's the best kind. I'm a neurologist, a brain doc, and I was in practice in Colorado for many years, and then started getting more involved with some research, and ended up getting into biotech and doing some drug discovery and development for treating some neurological problems. At the same time, I continued to do some teaching at the medical school, and things went well. So I love my career. I mean, my specialty was Parkinson's disease and related neurologic problems. Did that for 30 years and retired about 3 years ago, just in time for the Cannonball, and that was very intentional. At that time, we also left San Diego, California, where I had been living and working with my wife, and moved up here to Vashon Island, up in Puget Sound near Tacoma and Seattle. So the world has changed in a good way for my wife and I. We have this lovely spot, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that, and maybe show you around this collection of bikes that we have here in an old 1920s store.
Yeah, we'd love that. I know you've told me a bit, and I've gotten to see pictures of the place. Excited to kind of see that in a little bit. Let's kind of start in your beginning of motorcycling. I see it was about 18 when you first got started.
Yeah, I was living in Boston with my wife in the early 70s. We were both going to college, and we had no money. We were very poor, but we needed some transportation. And we bought I think it was the 69 Kawasaki Avenger A7. I don't know if you remember those 350 two-stroke twins that had the rotary disc intake valves, so the carburetors were hidden inside what looked like the engine cases. And for a few $100, we bought this bike. I knew nothing about motorcycles other than how to ride one. And we got, there you go. So my wife and I packed up to go camping for a week from Boston, got about 50 miles out of town, and the engine seized. And we slowed. I didn't know what was going on. I just pulled in the clutch lever, coasted to the side of the road, and let it cool down and started up. It was a little noisy, but it ran, and we continued the rest of our camping trip for that week. I went home and pulled the heads and learned how to fix that. Then at that point, decided I didn't like two strokes that much. And I ended up buying a 1966 Matchless 650 twin, which I still have to this day. I put over 40,000 miles on that Matchless. And
oh, no kidding. It's the same exact bike?
Same exact bike.
Did you say
Yeah,
you met Nancy? I'm sorry. Did you say you met Nancy in college?
Even before that, you want to get the story. My wife and I have been together since 1972. She was 17. I was 16.
Ooh.
We were seniors in high school, and we ended up moving in together. We lived in a barn on a commune in Minnesota.
A commune?
Yeah. Yep.
Did your parents know this?
Yes. I left home the week I turned 16. I'm from New York City. I grew up in New York. And
oh, no kidding.
The week I turned 16, I went out to Minnesota with these friends on this farm to live with them and to go to school, finish high school there. And so I went to this high school in Minnesota, and you know, within the first couple of days, I met this very attractive, redheaded high school senior, and the chemistry was there, and we've been together and best friends ever since.
Oh, that's great.
Oh, very cool. Story. So is Nancy's from Minnesota then?
She is. She is. And she's a good motorcycle gal. She loves bikes. I mean, we have a motorcycle. We've almost always had a motorcycle in the living room or somewhere in the house. I rebuilt engines in the kitchen. She likes riding on the bikes, although lately she says no more rigid frames. She says, "Look, get that BMW out with a comfy seat." Yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Keith
you guys make a great couple.
Keith Kronoff wants to know what part of New York you're from.
So I was born in Manhattan, and then we moved out to a town called Harrison, which is up by Portchester,
Westchester.
Yeah. And then I moved to Anchorage, Alaska for a couple of years. Then we came back to New York, and then left. But I've also lived in Rochester, New York, and out on Long Island. And we've lived in, I think my wife said we've lived in 27 addresses in the the 40, almost 50 years that we've been together. So we've lived in Colorado, Minnesota, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, California.
Is there a neurological explanation for all of this?
Well, yeah, if you consider that's where I went. That's where I went to get educated or to get a job. That's yeah.
You just can't stay put, can you?
Well, you know what? We were in San Diego for 17 years, but I couldn't. I mean, I love that. The thing I missed the most is my surf break. We lived right in Ocean Beach, right by the water, and I surfed 3 or 4 mornings a week. But there were too many people. I mean, there's 3 million people. It's crowded, and we discovered this part of Washington State, where one of our daughters lives, and we ended up finding Vashon Island, which is about the same size as Manhattan, but only about 10,000 people. It's very rural, and there are a ton of old bike guys on this island. It's unbelievable. So we
that kind of amazes me because it's not that big of a place.
Yeah, how's your Chinese food?
No Chinese food on the island.
That's a New York question.
Yeah, there's a good Thai.
So I want to get back to the 70s because I like the 70s.
Who doesn't?
So it says here you got your first matchless in 70. And it really seems like that is kind of what sparked your British fascination with motorcycles. I mean, would you say that's true?
It was. I mean, the matchless was. I wanted a Commando, but I couldn't afford a Commando, and I found the matchless that was only a few $100. It had the guy who had bought it in England came back to the States as a GI, a soldier, and then he tried to kind of turn it into a chopper, and I put it back to stock. And after the Matchless, it was just a whole series of additional British bikes. So I've, got BSA, Vincent, Bruff Superior, Triumph, Ariel, a bunch of Matchless. In fact, I was so into Matchless that I started looking for hard to find ones. And one of the unusual ones I have is a 1933 Matchless. It's a V4, and the V is a 16-degree V with overhead cam. 1933, think about that. Overhead cam V4. It's a 600cc with a girder front end and a cantilevered rear end. It looks like a monoshock. 1933.
Oh, no kidding.
It was incredible. But they're only, they were too expensive back in the 30s. There you go. That's exactly what it looks like. Too expensive, and they couldn't make them. And there are only probably, 50 left in the world. Then I got a Matchless Model X, which is a 1939. And that's a side valve, 1000cc side valve engine that was also used in a Bruff Superior. And I've got other Matchless singles, but then I got it, and then I got the Ducati, and then I got the Guzzi, and then the BMW, the old BMWs. But it wasn't, all this time I was thinking, I got to get that Henderson. I got to get the Henderson because that's what Alan Bedell set the transcontinental record in. And
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second before we kind of go on. Let's get into that, because I'm sure a lot of people out there really don't know who Alan Bedell is.
So Alan was an amazing young man with a way too short life. He was actually my grandmother's cousin, but in the family, sometimes he was referred to as an uncle. But he's technically my grandmother's cousin. He grew up in Montclair, New Jersey, and ended up into motorcycles. He ended up going out west and working for the Forest Service and riding. I have pictures of him on an early Harley. So I know Mark Hill hates it when I talk about that. Alan Bedell rode a Harley before Henderson, but then he actually set up a dealership with Harley and Indian in California, and started getting interested, as many of the riders and dealers did, in setting records. I mean, that was the whole way you sold bikes, right? You did the Mexico to Canada or the 24-hour, speed record or whatever. So he decided he was going to beat Cannonball Baker's cross-country record, and he got Henderson factory sponsorship. And so he went from California to New York in 1917 on a Model G Henderson in 7 days and 16 hours and some minutes. Think about that. There are no roads outside of a few cities in the middle and the coasts. He was riding on sand and dirt, and if the sand was too deep, he'd find a railroad track and ride along the railroad ties. Hardly any sleep, and miraculously, the bike did really well. It was properly prepared, well-made Henderson, and he set the record. And that story was told in my family. And we also heard stories about how the bike ended up back in New Jersey. And it had not run for a long time. So one of my family members took it apart, and the parts were spread all over the barn, and there was like raccoon poop in the, and eventually they decided they were going to take it to the shop and have somebody fix it. But the motor wasn't in it, so they wheeled the rolling chassis down the hill and used it like a push bike to get it to the shop. But unfortunately, the bike was lost in World War II. It was, like many things, considered old and metal, and therefore was part of the scrap metal drive for the war effort. And so that bike was gone. And we know the serial number on the bike, and we know but it's gone. Unfortunately for Alan, going back to 1917, after his success with the transcontinental record, he joined the military. World War I was underway, and he enlisted in the aviation training and went down to Louisiana for boot camp. And that was in the, I can't remember if it was February or March of 2018. 1918. 1918. And that's when the 1918 pandemic hit, which we learned so much about this current pandemic, about the last one. And he, like many other young men, got severe pneumonia, and he died. They were, in crowded quarters, in a packed boot camp, and he died in 1918, shortly after he had married. Now, the marriage I mentioned because his widow went on to have a very interesting creative life, and her correspondence and a lot of her letters ended up in the hands, it's down at Wheels Through Time Museum. And we'll see that when we stop there in September. As we go through, last time I was at Wheels Through Time, Dale and I pulled out all these documents and pictures that were Alan Bedell and his wife, his correspondence. And Dale said at the time, these documents should go with your, Henderson bike. But unfortunately, with Dale's passing, that never happened. But, it's quite a story,
It is interesting history there. And Alan was 20, you said, when he passed?
22 when he died.
22.
Yeah.
Well, he sure accomplished a lot in a short time, didn't he?
He set many records. I've collected quite a bit of memorabilia over the years, and there are lots of great pictures of him. I have documents from the motorcycle news letters that were published at the time, and he made the most out of it. I mean, he had sponsorship from Champion spark plugs and the tire companies and the chain companies, and they took advantage of that. But when I decided I needed to make a tribute ride for his efforts, the Cannonball hadn't existed yet, and early on there wasn't really much of an internet presence that I could take advantage of, and I didn't know anybody with Henderson's, and as you know, it's a kind of a pretty small club. Oh yeah, there's a nice picture of Alan arriving in New York, and he was delivering a telegram to one of the military officers all the way from the San Diego base to the New York base. But that's hardcore. I mean, he had 2 lights up on the handlebars, not a lot of protection. He would be greeted in the towns that he went through by other riders, and they would help him, change his oil or fix anything that had broken, and give him a sandwich and let him sleep for a couple hours and then send him on his way.
Well, he's certainly dressed for the task at hand, isn't he? And it looks like he's been through hell.
It must have been brutal. I mean, we didn't suffer on the Cannonball compared to what he suffered.
No, not at all.
And he was out there without a net, right? I mean, no support, no nothing.
He didn't have a lovely wife in a van to meet him in the parking.
Yes. Shout out to the wife.
Absolutely.
Which is always important, right?
Absolutely. But, trying to find a Henderson seemed to me an impossible task. And then, I learned about the Cannonball for the first one. And I said, that's it. Those are my people. I got to do that. But I was still working, 6 days a week, 12 hours a day, and, doing all this stuff. And I didn't know how I was going to pull that off, but I did start reaching out to see who I could meet. And I ended up meeting a great group of Henderson people. The best thing was connecting with Mark Hill and then David Ciclone, Steve's son. Turns out he had an original 1917 frame and part of a fork and some wheels and a tank. Frank Westfall had the other part of the fork. Mark had a beautiful set of 17 cases. And we started building a proper 17 Henderson. And you can see that, which way is it? It's over here. You can see that right behind me. That's the Cannonball bike. That's the 17 Henderson Model G with an original frame, original forks, original engine. The tank, unfortunately, was so rusty that we had to make a replica tank. I have the rusty tank, but it was not salvageable. And that is one sweet running bike. Oh my goodness.
Oh, it is. All them Hendersons really are. They're just so elegant out there.
And what a sound. They're so smooth.
I didn't really realize that that's how your bike came together. I guess I've never asked that before, but I mean, it's really pretty neat that, you know, all these people kind of really contributed to it. And, you know, we're able to follow, you know, just kind of find it in that little group of people out there.
And we did the mods to it for safety for the Cannonball. It has modern rims and tires, the little Honda brake, you know, to make it stop, an American Bosch period magneto, and a couple of little tricks that Mark does in the engine to make it reliable. But, you know, that bike with modern tires and brakes, you can ride it like a sport bike. There was one stretch at the last Cannonball when we were coming up out of the Dalles in Oregon, and the day before, like the second to the last day, and we were working our way over to that bridge that crosses the river. I can't remember the name of it now. And we were back in these twisties up in the hills, and I was chasing Vern Akers he was riding the 1918 Henderson, and we both had, you know, sport tires on, modern tires on. We were riding these things like they were sport bikes. It was awesome.
It's crazy. I try to, you know, even with me being on a modern bike on the last event, that, you know, trying to ride with you guys. I mean, there was times that I couldn't not even keep up because you guys were so more light and nimble in the corners and just, you know, going through there, you know, like a snake. Those big old long bikes, they just amaze me, and they just act like a sewing machine too, you know. I mean, just the sound of them and everything, it's unreal. I mean, the people out there that are watching tonight, if you've never seen one of these bikes or you never heard them run, I mean, come to the Cannonball just to see one of these things. I mean, they are unbelievable.
You know, for a 1917 bike, obviously 4 cylinders and a 3-speed tranny, with the gearing that I had on it, I was not afraid to ride at 65 miles an hour, which is crazy for 1917.
No, they were. I mean, what were they originally supposed to be? 30-mile-an-hour bikes? I mean, that was
no, they weren't
fastest that the roads were back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, you're right that in the teens, the roads were bad and motorcycles, you know, 30, 35 miles an hour was considered fast. But there's no question that these Hendersons could set these records. I mean, there were quite a few records set in the late teens with bikes, and you could probably get them to go, you know, faster than that with appropriate gearing. It'll be interesting
You mentioned Mark Hill, Chris. How did you hook up with Mark?
You know, he was hard to find because he's a really busy guy, and he doesn't need to advertise, and so, you know, it's not like he has a website and you can, you know, reach out and contact him. And so it took a lot of work, but I finally connected with him. And it turns out he lives in a little town in upstate New York on the St. Lawrence River, which is the next town over from where I used to spend my summers. My grandfather ran a plumbing business in Ogdensburg, New York, where my dad grew up. And here's Mark, the next town over, so it was a lot of fun to go back to upstate New York and go visit the town, go to the house where I used to spend the summers with my grandparents, and get to know the Fourth Coast 4 team. And so, not only did he help me create a fantastic Alan Bedell tribute bike, but he also helped me build my 2021 Cannonball bike, which is a 1928 Henderson. That's going to be an interesting comparison. It's a much bigger, heavier bike, and it'll be interesting to see how that feels after 2 weeks on the road.
Right. So have you gotten that bike back from Mark yet, or is it still up at his place getting worked on?
You say that as if that sometimes happens to people. Yeah, I do have the bike. I have been riding it, and he did a superb job on this 1928 engine. So the bike it's not a restoration, it's a rider. I mean, it's kind of a little bit crusty. I don't know if you have a picture of the 28 Henderson in the set there, but.
Well, we have quite a few pictures you sent us, so let's go through some of your photos and you can tell us about them.
Sure. Oh, so there's the 1917 frame as I first saw it. That's the first picture I saw of it, with the 2 wheels, the tank, a piece of the fork, floorboard, and that was the basis of the bike. The frame was good. It wasn't bent. It was no cracks or holes. So it cleaned up well, and was the basis
start. That's the start of your Cannonball adventure right there, huh?
And there it is after the cases have been located, the front and rear fenders. Mark handmade those fenders. And one of the things that's unique about these 17 Hendersons, they made sometimes mid-year changes, and we discovered there were something weird about the springs and the rebound springs, and we ended up playing around with that. You can see the Honda brake there in front, but that's pretty close to being assembled.
Nice.
There's a picture of the bike, and that's Vern Akers standing there. He's my riding buddy. It was awesome to have someone like Vern on a similar Henderson, who loved to ride, didn't put up with any bullshit, and
Right.
we had a great time. Now that bike, I used to call it the flamethrower. When we first left Portland, Maine, it was the carb was running a little rich. So every time he would shift and close the throttle, this rich fuel mixture would ignite out of the open pipe. So you had to stay a little bit away from him. But the thing about this scene, I don't know if you remember this stretch. This is toward the end of the Cannonball. We're coming out of eastern Washington by the Columbia River there. And we had just been battered by headwinds. It was brutal. Mm-hmm. And the gas mileage, it just plummeted. And so what we're doing right there, I had these mil-spec gas bags that held an extra gallon of gas, and we're topping up our gas tank. We ran out of gas before we got to the end.
I know a lot of people did that day. That was man, I think it had to have been 30, 40 mile an hour headwinds on that.
Yeah, you were tucked in.
They were just brutal.
It was, you had to tuck in and just go. Now, this picture I sent because it still gives me goosebumps. Shortly after leaving Portland, we're riding somewhere in New England, a nice sunny morning, crisp morning, and I see this guy riding next to me. And it's like, that's Alan Bedell. And that was my shadow.
Ah,
and so
yeah.
I pulled my phone out and took his picture with my hands off the bars. It just gave me chills. Still now, just talking about it does the same thing.
Right.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I love that picture. I love that.
Very cool. Very cool. Hey, just let me interrupt you real quick. Keith Kronoff, one of our viewers, one of our good viewers who watches every week, wants to know if you know the average weight of like a 17 or 18 Henderson. You have an idea what that weighs?
Yeah, they're in the 300s. Close, they're pretty light.
Yeah. For having a 4-cylinder engine and everything, yeah, that is pretty light.
Yeah. The thing about that the Detroit Hendersons is that it's an inlet over exhaust valve. So you get the rocker, and I put a little oil on it every time I get gas. And whereas the 28 Henderson that I'm going to ride in this year's Cannonball has side valves. So it's all enclosed.
Talk about the
Let's talk about
the wind. I'm sorry. Talk about the wind and the onions on that last day.
Oh, yeah. So in Eastern Washington, I don't know if you guys saw this. I'm sure some other people did. When you're going through the Eastern Washington, they have these giant agricultural spreads, and they grow a lot of onions in Washington. And it was harvest time, and they, Walla Walla onions. That's it, baby. Mike was telling about it. You got it, Mike. Walla Walla onions. So they're harvesting this stuff, but the paper onion skins, get blown off as they're loading up the semi-trailers, to haul these onions. And these things start accumulating like snowdrifts on the side of the road. And I thought I was hallucinating at first because I see these big banks of white piled up on the side of the road. I thought, I've been on the road too long. This Cannonball's starting to get to me, And then I realized they were onion skins. So that's a pretty unusual sight.
It is. Hey, let's go back to the Hendersons and between the 17 and the 28. What was your decision of not bringing the 17 back this year?
Well, two reasons. One is she did a wonderful job, perfect score. Well, only two things went wrong. And they both, it's unbelievable that these are two things, because normally when you put I'm just blanking, what's the name of a tapered steel pin where you knock it into place and it's held by friction? Somebody help me
Allen
out.
key?
No, well, that's the story. I'm riding somewhere in coming into the Badlands, and I went to put my foot on the clutch pedal, and there was no clutch pedal. It just was lying on the floor, loose on the floorboard. And so I put it into, like a roll pin, but it's not a roll pin, it's a solid.
Clevis pin.
There's another name. Anyway, it's like a roll pin. And so I get off, I coast to the side of the road, force it into neutral, and I see that the pin, these pins never fall out. You can't get them out when you want them out, right? A taper pin. Thanks, Dave. You want to pound them out. They're hard to get out. This fell out. So I'm digging in my tool bag, and I find that I have an Allen key that's just the same size as the taper for the clutch. So I put that back together, safety wired in, and that gets me. The thing that's so funny about that is it happened again with a different taper pin. This time I went to shift and I had nothing, with the hand shift. It was just moving around and nothing was going on. And the taper pin where the shaft out of the tranny emerges had also fallen out. Sure enough, put the Allen key, little safety wire, it's still on the bike. So those are the only two things that went wrong with the motorcycle.
Nice.
But I wanted to try the 28 Henderson because because I had one, and it needed some love and attention. It was just sitting in the back, and I said, it'd be really fun to see what a luxury cruising bike would be like. Bigger, heavier, more powerful, factory brakes, and that kind of thing. And so I reached out to Mark and we started planning what we were going to do, and we decided we're going to make this bike really go. And so it has some interesting modifications. First is a factory mod. It has Ricardo cylinders.
Nice.
He was the guy that. Pardon?
Nice.
Yeah,
Ricardo
so
cylinders, very nice.
Yeah, so he's the guy who invented, how to make a better combustion shape for flathead engines. So we got 4 of those, and then Mark did his magic on the crankshaft and the tranny. So I think some people have seen Indian 4s and Hendersons and Aces that have an aftermarket oil filter kit. And so we did that, but we also ran pressurized oil lines. So the tranny main shaft and the crank, everything's pressurized with oil. And the engine, it is just awesome. It's powerful, it's smooth. And when I first had it, I had the wrong gears on it. I had what I called the Bonneville gearing. It was, I was running, I think a 21 in the front and a 36 in the rear. That thing was geared to do 100 miles an hour easily. I could shift into third at about 65 or 70. And I thought, this is not going to work. This is not the way you go through small towns and, in rural Tennessee or wherever we were. So I ended up putting 17 on the front and what did I put on the rear? I can't remember. Maybe it's a 40, 41. But we got it down to normal gearing. So I have a couple little mods left to do. I want to put a better front brake on so it's safer. And I don't know if you remember Jeff Tiernan from previous Cannonball. He had a 28 that used a Norton Atlas drum brake that fit really nicely. So we're going to try to do something like that.
Cool.
Oh yeah, that'd be a great one. So I bet one of the biggest advantages of the 28 over the 17 is actually having a transmission. I mean, the 17 was that was a single speed, wasn't it?
No, 17 was the first year of the 3-speed. And so,
it was.
1916 was the last year of the single speed. And those are, ask Andrea or any of the other single speed riders, that's work. They start orbiting the stoplight, so they don't have to shift. And, it's a challenge. Oh, there's a good picture.
What's going on here?
So that's a fine Cuban cigar. And I am stretched out on my back doing the nightly chores. Now, the 17 Henderson didn't have an oil filter. And I decided in consultation with Fourth Coast 4s that I was going to change the oil every day. And so I used a synthetic redline oil, changed it every day, went front to back, did every nut and bolt, checked the valves, had to adjust them just a couple times, chain adjustment, tire pressure. But that was the routine. And, lying on your back with a nice Monte Cristo is not too bad.
Heck yeah.
That's cool stuff right there. So that looks like you had finished your chores and were kicking back. Is that right?
I think the chores, I mixed the chores with the pleasure as well. Yeah. I mean, the best part was having people around who, were knowledgeable, were willing to help, and vice versa. If I could help people, I'd do the same thing, and was more than willing to chip in. Oh, there you go, Rob. You recognize that bike?
I do recognize that bike. What's the story here?
Well, I want to hear the story more from you. So this bike, I was not planning on buying it. It was at Meekum's, was it a year? Not this, a year or two ago. 2 years ago.
Oh, no, it was
year and a half ago.
It was 2020, yeah.
Yeah.
It was January
so I was,
before the pandemic.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, yeah, I'm mixed up on time. But you know, I'd want a knucklehead, but I'm not a chrome guy. I'm not into flash. And I see this beautiful 1945 E knucklehead, 61 cubic inch, and there's no chrome on the bike. And I'm like, wow, that's cool. And I knew these were rare, right? Because civilian essential use bikes like this were few and far between. I think they only made 600 and something bikes. And
that's right. Yeah.
And I'm not normally one who likes to buy a bike at an auction that I don't know something about. I haven't ridden it or seen it run or, know who built it. But this one, I knew who built it. I knew Retro Cycles had done a lot of good engines that were in the Cannonball. And I saw a video of the bike running. And I knew I could give Rob crap if if the bike was bad. And so I did it. But
to which I asked before the show, let's talk about the elephant in the room. How's the bike running?
And it's a sweet, sweet motor. These 61 cubic inch knuckles are just wonderful. Obviously, if it's set up well. I bid the bike, and it was kind of weird. There wasn't a lot of people bidding on it. And I got the bike for what I thought was a very, very fair price. Yeah, especially compared to last week's auction or whatever that was.
Right.
Oh, dang, yeah.
Yeah, it just doubled in value.
So I got it home, 2 prime kicks and a kick, and it was running. And I've been riding it ever since. And I'm not treating it as a museum bike. It's a bike that I ride.
Yeah. And that's a fun one to ride too. I enjoyed riding that bike around here when we were shaking it out. So
here's a picture of the 1928 Henderson that I'm going to ride in this year's Cannonball. I've already got my number plates on it. I swapped the big Harley police seat and over from my 17 over to this one. You'll notice that custom sheepskin pad that's courtesy of your favorite leather maker, Frank Westfall, and makes a really comfy seat. This bike, it goes good. First, starts with 1 kick, idles smooth, pulls strong, and I'm going to put some fresh tires on it, that Norton Atlas front brake, and we're ready to go.
I bet that's going to be a fun one.
Hey, let me interrupt again real quick here. Let's talk about that name on your shirt. Do you remember what shirt you're wearing?
I do. Well, I got plaid on, right? You got to have plaid flannel, right?
Well, listen, this is the Flannel Mafia. We've been labeled the Flannel Mafia.
I've been slacking though. I've been slacking.
But this is Flintworks. So Flintworks is a small company that my wife and I set up to handle our motorcycle business. There's our website, Flintworks LLC. I have a blog on there from the last Cannonball. There's a picture of my lovely bride to my right in that picture. Back then she had longer hair, now it's short. And then Vern is next to me, and Vern's sister, Shelly Akers. So Vern and Shelly and Nancy were the ones that drove the van, the support van in the last Cannonball. And if the borders open, Shelly can come back from Canada. We're gonna have the same support crew, and they have their own adventures to tell. Talk about buying beer in some small town in rural Montana. there were some guys that wanted to take those two ladies and their beer and their van, and just that was going to be it.
Right. Yeah, we got to actually get some of the support crew people on here and
Yeah.
talk about some of their adventures, because they're just as good as the riders sometimes.
So if you go back to one of those pictures that I think you see that I sent you, I think there's a fun Indian that you should see in there. If you can find it, it's a crusty looking bike. I've got.
I noticed that one. That was the first one I seen when that picture pulled up.
Yeah, so that is an unusual bike. There's a guy down in Portland, Vahan Dahinian, who some of you know because he makes really good Magneto stuff, roll bikes. He has a jig for 101 frames, and he can actually repair those tanks. And if you've ever dealt with those silver soldered tanks, the brazed tanks, they're just impossible to fix. Well, he can silver them and then repair them. But I got this bike from him. It's a crusty, barn find looking bike, but mechanically it's perfect. And the really unusual thing about this bike is it's a stroker. It's 57 cubic inches with high compression. It's a little bit of a beast to kick over. You know how you get, my Sportster does the same thing. It makes my right knee hurt every time.
Yeah, right. What year is this Indian?
So this is a 1930 101 Scout. And this bike goes like stink because it weighs like nothing. And it has a lot of oomph, a lot of juice. Originally,
you said that was a 37 cubic inch stroker?
57 cubic inch.
Oh, 57.
Yeah, normally it was a 45.
How come you're not doing the chase?
You know, I was planning on doing the chase. In fact, I was going to do it in the. Yeah, but you know, Jason put them in this, same year, same summer as the Cannonball. I can't do two things in one summer like that. I'll do the chase.
You're retired. You're retired.
Yeah, but I got a lot. I play keyboards in a jazz band, and I got a lot of stuff going on.
Another musician, motorcyclist.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, in fact, the room I'm sitting in, this was a 1920 general store, and we turned it into a place for us to hang out. There's musical instruments, drums, guitars, keyboards, PA system. So we have parties in here with all the bikes, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, we do that in my shop too. We rehearse in the bike shop. So.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Are you a blues guy or what's your name?
Classic rock guy.
Excellent. Yeah, we've got a couple gigs coming up this summer that I'm excited about after, a year and a half of not playing.
So yeah. It'd be nice to get out, right?
Yep.
So let's tell us about making what it's like to make a wrong turn on the Cannonball.
Well, first lesson I learned was don't follow the guy in front of you because he's probably wrong. You got to trust your in. The second is make sure your odometer works and you know how to use it properly. And that it's fully charged. Because when you make a turn and it's the wrong turn and you have to circle back and suddenly you've added 5.3 miles, then for the rest of the day, you have to do arithmetic and that makes your brain hurt.
It does.
It's really hard. So the solution we did, that happened to me twice. One was the brain pain. The second one was I realized as I was riding next to Byrne that his odometer was just about to turn 100 miles. So I just zeroed mine out. So at least the last two digits were always correct. And that way it didn't hurt too much. There's a picture of my lovely bride helping me get the sheet roll and the map box all squared away.
That's great.
There's you should have another picture in there of the shop. I don't know if you can see there's
While
a machine.
we're looking for that picture, tell us about the Road to the Sun. What kind of effect that had on you?
You know, that one was another one of those. I don't know if you remember, before you actually get up into the mountains, there's some really nice twisties. And we had a freight train of 4 Hendersons. And Andrea was just going like a she was flying a jet plane.
Like Andrea.
And we're tucked, Andrea was. And so we're tucked in 4 Hendersons, sweeping through these turns as we're working our way up to the mountains. And then we start getting up into the mountains. And I don't know if you remember that day, it was cold and it had started raining and, you know, eventually started hailing. But as we got up to the top of the mountains, the clouds cleared, the sun rays came down like magic. And we're going up at the top. We look over and there's a grizzly bear and the sunlight's shining down. When the bikes are running great, and I said, this is it. This is why we ride.
It definitely is. That was one killer day. I mean, there was so much stuff going on that day that, I mean, it's hard to top days like that on the Cannonball.
And you had sun and snow the same day, right?
Yeah. The hail was not pleasant.
No. Well, never is.
My favorite part was seeing the grizzly bears, and they were just, you know, when we were seeing them, they were actually running towards the road, and it was crazy. These people were like getting out of the van, and they were trying to walk towards this thing, trying to get pictures. And, you know, there was a park ranger there, like trying to stop these people, and they were still going. And, you know, we were on a bike, and we were like, heck no, let's get the hell out of here.
Absolutely.
So, do you want to still take a look at the shop picture
sure.
that we were talking about?
Sure. So I'm really lucky in that I bought a building on the island right in the property next to my house. We're out in the middle of the woods, and right on harbor. And so a guy about 40 years ago built a seaplane hangar, which is a 2,500 square foot pole barn, insulated, with a concrete boat ramp into the water. And I bought that building. And so you can see this is just part of the shop. There's my index mill, which is like, if you're a machinist, I've had to self-taught, you know, how to make parts and stuff. I'm not a good machinist, but I found this mill on the island. And this thing is bigger than the Bridgeports I've used. It's an awesome machine. So I've got that, and then I've got my little lathe in the back, Atlas metal lathe. Yeah, there's the index. They still make them. I even wrote to the guy, and you know, he told me this was from the early '60s, and if I ever needed parts, you know, that's pretty cool. I don't have 3-phase in the hangar, so I had to put one of those freak boxes in, but that works pretty good. There's the lathe. Right. Make a lot of bushings and things in there. So it's great to have this shop that I can just walk to from the house. And, you know, you can put a lot of bikes in a 2,500 square foot building.
I love your curtains, by the
way. keeps it cool in the summer and warm in the winter. Yeah. Yeah, what I'd really like to do, I don't know if this is even doable. I could, you know, I'm doing this on an iPad. If I could pick up the iPad, I can walk around and show you a couple of bikes in here. Does that work?
Yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do that. Let's see if you can turn your screen around.
Yep, I'll do that. All right. So here's a let's pause it right there. Nice. There's some bikes on this side. So there's the 17 Henderson, and it's place of pride.
What's on that rack?
Yeah, let's go to the right there. There you go. There's a party.
So I have a special deal. I have 2 wonderful daughters. One of them is a winemaker extraordinaire, and she makes killer wine. And so we never have a shortage of wine.
Yeah, I'll walk you through if that works for you.
Sure.
Yeah,
they're
let's do that.
Yeah, and then we got to wrap up pretty soon, but
Okay.
give us a tour here. This would be great.
Yeah, there's a first year Bonneville Triumph 1959, runs beautifully. Sweet bike. Here's something you don't see very often, an unmolested 66 XLCH.
Looks familiar to me.
Dual seat. You don't see those stock mufflers. Oh my God.
You know what's funny? What's funny is that seat. I had my 66 since 1974, and I looked for years for that seat, and I finally found it, and then they came out of the woodwork. They were all over the place.
Yeah.
It took me like 20 years to find that seat.
Okay, Rob, here's a test. What's this?
That is the green bike.
1932
Is that-
VL.
Yeah,
Nope.
it's an RL.
It's an RL. Good man.
Look
No,
at the
the
primer.
cool thing about this. So I got this bike from a former cannonballer, Chris Thompson, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I got this bike from Chris. The cool thing about this bike, every single piece of this bike is original except the tires.
Is that a John Brown headlight?
It's
Yeah,
everything.
I can tell that from here.
It's everything.
Wow,
The
that's
spark plugs,
unbelievable.
the cables, the wiring, everything is original.
Get a little closer to the tank because that's one of the most unique Harley Davidson tank emblems.
It certainly is.
It's like my favorite one.
This bike
That
went
is-
into storage. It was owned by one family for 75 years. And then Chris got it, and then I bought it from him. It runs, but I'm terrified to use it.
It's
because
a 30
it's only
what? 33?
It's a 30.
No, 32.
Sorry, 32
Oh,
RL.
30.
32.
32.
Nice.
It's a beauty.
I love it.
Here's something that you don't see every day. This is pre-war overhead cam Velocette.
What a cool bike.
Yeah. Here's one of my wife's bikes.
Oh yeah. Is it a 160 or 305?
It's a 150. It's a CA95. This bike only has 400 and something miles on it. It's all original, including the tires.
What year?
66.
66. It was a good year for motorcycles.
There's an early Square 4 aerial.
Okay, so
Yeah, those
explain
things are cool.
to people why it's called a Square 4.
Because it's a 4-cylinder bike, 2 cylinders in the front, 2 in the back. And the early ones only had 2 pipes. The later ones had 4 pipes.
Not necessarily true, by the way. Square 4, it's a square bore and stroke.
That too.
Yeah. But I
That's
think
a-
most
that's a-
people refer to it Square 4 because of what you mentioned.
And here's here's the old Warhorse, 47 Chief.
Yep.
They made more Chiefs in 47 than any other year. This is one that Mike Thomas at Kiwi Indian helped me get sorted out. Sweet running bike.
Oh, very cool.
I'm still looking for a 49 Chief. If you find one.
I got
Okay.
one, Rob.
But wait till you see this one.
Ooh, I like that. Is that a 28?
It was made in 29, but I think sold in 29.
So is it a
It's
401?
interesting. So it's interesting. Yeah, it has the 2 double down tube frame, but the 3 bearing crank. So it's kind
So
of
is that-
they only made this for a few months before they went
that
to
a-
the later one.
I'm sorry. Is that a 401 or a 402?
So technically it's a 401, but there were a few months where they went from the single down tube frame to the double down tube frame before they went to the 5 bearing main.
So it's a 401 and a half.
Exactly.
That's cool.
And
Unique.
we've got a bunch we've got a bunch of /2 BMWs. Those are just great bikes. I love working on them. There's a BSA Gold Star and a
Is that
Norton
a
Commando.
63 BMW?
That one's a 66, but you can't tell. They're all the same.
Does it have the Earl's fork?
Yes, it does.
Nice.
Wow.
And here's another one of my wife's bikes. This is an Earl's Fork BMW, but it's an R26. It's a single.
And what
cylinder.
year is that?
That's a 1956.
Nice stuff, man.
There's the Matchless V4.
Wow.
And a couple of Vincents.
Just a couple.
I have 4 Vincents. And then there's a Perilla. We were talking about Perillas before. You don't see one of these very often.
No, that's an unusual bike.
2-stroke. Yeah. So that's the tour of the shop.
Nice.
Of the store.
Well, beautiful setup you got there, Chris. That's just nice and neat and clean. Beautiful.
We're lucky to be here.
Chris Simmons wants to know if your wife rides.
She does. She has. She's not comfortable riding herself anymore, but she loves riding on the back.
Cool.
And Chris, I know you're watching. I have your Women in Motorcycling book prominently on the coffee table just to my right. Awesome pictures, wonderful book. Thank you for what you've done.
There you go.
We're waiting
Shout
for
out
her to
Chris.
do part number 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, she needs to do part 2 and ride the chase again.
No pressure, but
thumbs up. Well, I see by the old clock on the wall, as Chris Callan says, this is 60 to 90 minutes of all you can talk about, and I think we hit the 90-minute mark.
Oh, geez.
We did. It was great.
But it's been a lot of fun. It's been educational. And we got some free advice from a doctor, which is always good.
Well, I'm always happy on the Cannonball if somebody needs, a set of medical eyes or hands. It's amazing that we've had 2 neurologists on the last Cannonball,
and an emergency room physician in Mike Butts.
Yep.
So that's pretty neat.
And of course, great nursing support. I mean, awesome.
Vicky was great. So, well, I just shout out to you and your lovely wife, and thank you so much for joining us tonight. I tell you, it was great. What a great
we're really looking forward to seeing you this September. Definitely we'll have to have you guys back on. Hopefully next time we can actually do this live from Flint Works on Bashan Island. That would be really, really cool just to do something from there. So, and I think we're going to start doing it. I mean, once traveling starts opening up here towards the end of the year, I think we're planning on kind of taking the show on the road and showcasing a few of these places that are so cool and the people that come on here. So I know you'll be one top on our list.
Excellent.
All right. With that, I'm going to say thank you very much and good night, Chris. And Jason, you got anything, words of wisdom for our audience?
No, you know what? We forgot one question. And we got to go back to Chris.
Okay.
So I always lead off the show with what can we expect out of Chris over the next year? I mean, what's not even to do with motorcycling. I mean, what do you have in the next year's plans other than the Cannonball?
So I have a bunch of restoration projects. I just picked up a 100-year-old metal lathe that needs saving. I serve on the Medical Reserve Corps on the island. So we're planning for disaster preparedness. We expect to have a huge earthquake here in the Puget Sound area sometime in the future.
and we're setting up an emergency response system to deal with that. So I'm a volunteer working with that group. I've got my soul jazz funk band that we play in. We got a bunch of gigs playing. I got to keep rehearsing and practicing, and hopefully get a chance to catch up with my grandkids and make the most of the summer. Cannonball is going to be the high point.
Heck yeah. All right. Well, with that, I guess we'll get out of here and get on with the night. My battery died, so I got to go back to the old backup camera right there. But again, I want to thank you again for coming on for tonight. Thank you all out there for tuning in. We appreciate all your comments, your support with the show, all the stuff that we're doing, support to the guests that we're having, being interactive with them. And, we love you guys. And hopefully we'll all get to see you here pretty soon. What do you got, Robbie?
Not much going on.
All right. Well, hey, we are back again next week. Same channels, same everything. The only thing that's different is we're going to have a different guest.
Yeah. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We appreciate your you guys watching us every week, or if you just tuned in, we appreciate you tuning in and checking out the Cannonball Chronicles.
Heck yeah. If there's anybody you want to see on the show, drop us a line and we'll see if we can get them on.
And thank you to Choppertown for all that they do and help us with Source Media Productions. And all those of you in Choppertown, thanks a lot for joining in.
Guess what? We will see you guys next week right here, Cannonball Chronicles.